Isn't this cool? Because time is like this non-stop monster, which is terrifying when you actually take a step back and start to think about it. In 2020, there are loads of sci-fi movies that were set in the future, but again, now because of this time thing, they're in the past. It hurts my brain because I'm stupid. What it does mean is that now we can go through a handle of these and see what did they get right, what did they get wrong, or did they just make up a bunch of nonsense which was never going to happen simply because it fit the plot. I don't want to do too much of a spoiler, but that one. But my name is Simon Miller, it's Friday, we're talking sci-fi, push it together, it becomes Sci-Fi, and these are 10 futuristic sci-fi movies that now take place in the past. Number 10, Reign of Fire. Reign of Fire is set in the northeast of England in the year 2020, early 2020. Well, here we are in late 2020. I'm in the United Kingdom, and I'm still waiting for some dragons to turn up and basically burn planet Earth to the ground. And that's the other cool thing. The whole narrative here is that dragons have reclaimed the globe, and they're now top of the food chain, and humans are all like, nuts. Now, this was released in 2002, so director Rob Boland clearly had no hope for the future. I mean, this is what he envisioned a few years down the line. And look, let's be honest about Reign of Fire. Is it something you should go out of your way to watch? No, not really. In fact, it's pretty bad. But look, it's got dragons in it. And right now, I would take more dragons. They're really cool. It's obviously far more fun watching it today because we are in the same period where this is set. But also, can we do the same kind of thing with aliens? But I mean in real life. I want to be like in Independence Day, where I'm driving down a road and I've got a huge horizon, and then a UFO comes over that horizon, because for about 4 seconds, it would be the best thing ever, and then you'd realize you were gonna die. Number 9, Daybreakers. A low-budget Ethan Hawke doozy, which is actually quite good, all things considered. Daybreakers is set in 2019, and once again see the human race lose their place at the top of the food chain, because now vampires exist, and you know what vampires do? They hunt down our species, and they suck out their blood. Great. The twist, however, is that Ethan's character doesn't actually believe in drinking other humans' blood, so he has made it his mission to drink animal blood and try and convince other people to do otherwise. Then there's this whole subplot narrative where Willem Dafoe's vampire character has a crash, and in that crash he somehow turns back into a human. Look, it sounds far worse than it is, but when you actually sit down and watch it, it does a decent job. So it's not the worst way to pass the time, especially because there's a few jabs at greedy capitalists, although I do need to warn you, if you do decide to check this out, the plague begins because of an infected bat. And if you don't know what I'm referencing, then my word, do I envy you. You must have been living under a rock. And can I come and live there too? Number 8, The Island. Better on paper than it was in execution, Michael Bay's The Island was set in 2019 and sees the rich and famous celebrities of the world cloning themselves in order to maintain peak physical condition. It then got to the box office and absolutely bombed. There is some ambition here, and it tries to be a smart sci-fi movie, but of course this is Michael Bay, and his remit is action and car chases, so that's when the film gets going, when you have action and car chases. But I don't think that's what anybody wanted to see, hence why it didn't do very well. It's mostly Ewan McGregor just running around going, oh no, I'm in trouble. Which is okay. Its best moments come towards the beginning of the film, where it is letting you know about this new world, and it does come across as really intriguing, but yeah, again, it's 2020 now, and I can't clone anything, so it got it really wrong. Number 7, Time Cop. Man, I love Time Cop. I mean, this was clearly just based on a title where some producer went, well, we can have a police officer and he can travel through time, put your hands together, and we have Time Cop. I mean, it's absolutely madness, it's absolutely ridiculous, but I really do enjoy watching it. It also doesn't try to make the most of its concept at all, and is literally just Jean-Claude Van Damme doing the same movie he always does, except now he is able to travel through time. But the absolute highlight is that they think this was going to happen in 2004, and the film was released in 1994. What did they think was going to happen in that decade? To give you some context, in the mid-2000s, Netflix was still sending out DVDs. So how the hell we were ever going to be able to invent time travel and then send cops through it, I will never know. But hey, it's all about Time Cop. Number 6, The Sixth Day. During Arnold Schwarzenegger's run of films where it kind of felt like we had run out of ideas, The Sixth Day is yet another sci-fi flop that focuses on cloning. However, this one is set in 2015, so a few years before The Island, and yet obviously they are still incorrect for that very reason. The best part, however, is because it was released in the year 2000, its massive prediction for the future is that the XFL is going to take over the NFL when it comes to American football. If you don't know, the XFL was a brand new football league that was invented at the turn of the century. It died, and then it came back in 2019, and it died again. All of this does mean we get 2 Arnies after he accidentally clones himself, which is illegal, and I tell you who the real winner of all of this was. Schwarzenegger himself. He pocketed $25 million, which was around about 35% of the entire budget. It didn't really do that great financially either, although there is some charm as seeing Arnold Schwarzenegger play 2 different versions of Adam Gibson. Sucks to be him though, because he also got nominated for a Razzie. Number 5, Surrogates. Surrogates came and went with so little fanfare in 2009, it was almost like it didn't exist. And it did have some things going for it. I mean, it was directed by Terminator 3's Jonathan Musto, and it did generate $120 million at the box office of a budget of 80. It's not ideal, but it doesn't suck. Based on the comic of the same name that was set in 2054, everyone involved with the movie thought that was too silly, so they brought it forward to 2017. Well, now they have eggs on their faces, because the whole point of Surrogates is that human beings have stopped doing anything, and robots now carry out everyday tasks. Well, actually, maybe that is a fair one. Think about how much stuff you order off Amazon. Bruce Willis is the star who eventually has to get some work done where these surrogates start getting killed, and it's full of the expected twists and turns. I thought it was fine. Critics did not. Number 4, The Running Man. Arnie is now back with 1987's Running Man, which is meant to be set somewhere between 2017 and 2019, and this one actually gets a round of applause because the whole premise is based on reality TV and how it's taken over entertainment. Spot on. I mean, it's a little bit more of a dark tone here because it features a bunch of criminals that have been put in some kind of death race and they have to try and stay alive. I suppose the equivalent would be anyone that loses an American Idol being thrown into a pit and eaten by a tiger. This is also an underrated gem by Schwarzenegger, and once again, don't forget about the concept. It's TV and movie executives doing whatever they can to try and get ratings. I think this kind of adds up. I think we've all seen plenty of evidence towards this in 2020, and it's only going to take one person to have some crazy idea and it gets greenlit before the terror arrives. Still though, Running Man is way more vicious than what we have, so it has to get across. Number 3, Terminator Salvation. 2018 was the year when Skynet was going to be kicking our ass, according to Terminator Salvation director McG. 2018! Although saying that, the absolute horrific thing about Skynet is really it could attack within 24 hours, it's just machines turning on us, so we could wake up tomorrow and actually realize he was only a couple of years off. No one talks about any of that now though, because of course when the topic of salvation does come up, we all reference Christian Bale's meltdown on stage, where he did that thing where he went da 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 da. I never understood what he was doing there, but he has since apologized, so I guess we should give the benefit of the doubt. If you haven't seen it, go and YouTube it. It will blow your mind. I'd love to know what Warner Brothers thought about all that, considering it cost $200 million. And of course, they tried twice more after this to reignite the franchise, and yet still it lies on the floor in a pile of its own filth. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I actually think Salvation would be a better movie if the Terminator name was removed, because it's just the expectation of that drags it down. Otherwise, it's an alright post-apocalyptic film. Also, look, if you had been waiting since 1984 to see The War of the Machines, you finally got it. Just a little bit drab. Number 2, Back to the Future Part 2. Back to the Future Part 2 made such an impression when it was released in 1989. When the big date from the film, October 21st, 2015, came around, some people looked out of their windows hoping that the world had changed. And surprisingly, it hadn't. We still don't have hoverboards, which hurts me right down in my tum-tum, but when you look a little bit closer, a little bit deeper, maybe we're not so far removed from it at all. Because we do have stuff like biometric scanners, we do have stuff like automated technology, and while we didn't get Jaws 19 or whatever it's meant to be, Star Wars, Friday the 13th, Halloween, they keep releasing sequels, so I understand the joke. Don't forget that would have been directed by Max Spielberg too, and we could stand here all day and reel off a bunch of offspring who have found their way into the film world thanks to their famous father directors. You can even get those Nike trainers, although they cost around about 6 figures, and who has that kind of cash? I guess we have to go back to the future. That wasn't the plot of any of the movies. Number 1, Blade Runner. Blade Runner's vision of 2019 LA was just a little bit off, even though both of them do come across as quite muggy, but it does have another shot because of its sequel. When we get to 2049, we'll have to come back and do another video. Spoiler, I will be old. The original wasn't totally wrong, however, because everybody is using virtual assistants that are controlled by their voice. And if right now I go, Alexa, you all of a sudden hate me because I just turned yours on. Sorry. It is hilarious that the heavy use of photography revolves around Polaroid cameras, although you can argue that too, because there is like a niche and a nostalgia around them now. People are going back to them. But the great thing about Blade Runner is that none of this matters at all. The major focus should always be that despite being released in 1982, 38 years later, it is still one of the best sci-fi movies ever and one of the most influential. Like, how can you be on that pedestal for almost 4 decades? I don't get it. And what's coming along that's gonna knock it off? My answer is nothing. Now, don't forget to leave a comment below and let us know any other movies that used to be in the future but now they're set in the past, as if you're Doc Brown and Marty McFly. Like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, head over to whatculture.com and read yourself some articles. Follow What Culture on Twitter @WhatCulture and watch more videos here on YouTube on the What Culture channel. My name is Simon from What Culture. Thank you as always for joining me on Friday and talking about sci-fi. It becomes sci-fi. Maybe you've got an idea for one of these. You can plop that in the comments too. I'll see you next week.